Hey everyone. All right.
Hey everyone.
Sorry, I'm just we've lost one of our usual side by side abilities on the live there. But anyway, I guess it's going to be about me for a second here. So, welcome everyone. I'm Chris Dobbin, and thank you. We're thrilled to have you here for the Amplify Your Brand series. Where we talk about the ultimate powerful branding, talking about today's digital age. Along with my friend and fellow branding expert, Samoa here, we're here to share the expertise and help you take your brand to the next level. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, or a business professional, this is jam-packed with insights and strategies that will help you amplify your brand and get you out there in the digital landscape. Thank you for finding it. So get ready to take notes and please take what you do today into action, because by the end of this live stream, you'll either have a clear roadmap on building a brand that truly resonates with your target audience. So thank you for joining us today, and let's find another way to amplify your brand as well. You've done my head in there. So I think it's Sim. Is that Sim on the screen? Who have we here today?
Yeah, it's me. Why can't you recognize me, Chris?
Because you've got that helmet on. I don't know what's going on here. So we've some,
Well,
unless of course
but
we've got
obviously it's me.
funk in the house. Is that what's going on?
So this is actually the perfect intro for today's podcast or live session, because we're talking about the importance of having some coherency, some consistency, and we're going to introduce today's topic, the brand manual, the importance of having a brand manual to reinforce how important it is for you to recognize me and even Chris to recognize me within our brand, and why this can't work for our live session. So let me get back to my usual, and I'm going to stick to the script that we defined in our brand manual.
Oh, it is you. Welcome back. Hey, Sim. So unfortunately, the branding for coaches won't get this today, but we'll obviously upload that for them at some point. But thanks again for everyone that is here or is listening as we go through this today. So let's, I guess, talk a little bit about, firstly, today's topic, as we've talked about, is unlocking the brand brilliance, the missing link, your brand guideline manual. So tying everything together, so every element of your brand identity. So one of the things that we do with this, and we actually bring this into everything we've sort of talked about over the last few weeks, is always linked into our P8 framework. As you can see on the screen, we have 8 steps that we take, or 8 components of our framework that we really focus on with our clients to illustrate the importance of everything we've brought together today on the outcome of getting a brand style guide or manual. And the reason that manual can exist is because we have a process we go through to get you to that point where you can actually document why your brand exists and how your brand should be used as an ongoing thing. So, Sim, I guess you don't absolutely need this guideline, but if you don't have it, you're basically creating a little bit of chaos. You've got a very modular or a very morphing, I guess, I don't know, I'm looking for adjectives, words here that would describe the fact that, but mainly the key word I would probably put into this is chaos. If you don't have a brand, it's a very organic. So
yes, yeah. Well, I think it's a good time for us to actually have a stop and think and recap what we've done this far. Throughout our first couple of dozens of live sessions, we've talked about everything that creates a foundation in the brand. Talked about vision, the importance of translating that into a mission, understanding the purpose, understanding a demographic, a profile audience. We talked about visual identity. We talked about the place of a logo within that system. We've talked about all of these things, and each one of them by themselves are very important. But when they really come together is when you start having a system to apply your brand with consistency. And that system usually is condensed into what today's topic is. It is the brand manual, and the brand manual is, like we left it at the last few minutes of last week's session, it's the Bible for your brand. It's the place where all things get recorded, systemized, and then consistently applied. This is important because for small businesses, most of us listening to this right now are small business owners, and everything goes well because we have most IP inside our head. We understand what our brand should look and feel like. We understand what colors we use on our brand. We understand what logos are meant to be used. But the problem starts when we start adding to our organization, to our structure. What happens when you hire a social media manager? Usually you have to, Mr. Business Owner, I'm talking to you. You have to drop whatever you're doing to handhold and onboard that new professional you're hiring to get you to do some effort in marketing, some effort in branding, building and amplifying your brand. So the thing that we keep identifying within our own business and helping our customers is that this can be simplified by building that brand manual. So throughout the first few sessions, we talked about all the individual elements, and we sort of created little connections, but all of this has been detached from a system. And today's topic is creating that system for your business, because you only have a brand if you can consistently replicate an experience. And you still have a business, no doubt, but the sooner you realize, once you create that expectation for delivery of your service or product, the earlier you're going to need to be able to do it day in, day out. Again, we take it back to the brand manual and how that applies on a regular living existence of a business. Once you have that brand manual set, it becomes a lot easier for you to let go of a part of your business that it took you a long time to understand, to build, to perfect, and to implement. Like I said, onboarding is a symptom, and it's going to test the business when you have to teach everything that you've learned over time to somebody else. And you don't have the resources to drop everything you're doing, teach somebody, bring them on board, and have them apply at the same level you do. So this is where the brand guidelines manual comes into play.
Yeah.
Let's kick it into high gear, Chris.
We're going to recap that at a later point as well. So let's look at this. So some of the brand statistic that small businesses can use to their benefit. Do you want to talk to the screen what we've got here? So
yeah, well, again, the difference between having a business and having a brand is what those statistics speak to. Just about 60% of consumers prefer to buy products from brands they know. Nielsen Global Trust is a company that is dedicated for the last 20 years to studying patterns in recognition, patterns in habits, patterns in behavior online. So among the digital marketers, they're highly respected in what they do because they basically observe what we collectively do online, they record it, and then they create these interesting studies. The Nielsen agency has been responsible for perfecting user interfaces, website navigations, and everything that we know online. Everything that you see here is mostly derived from perfecting the experience, and most of it has been recorded by this agency. So the statistics tell us that 60% of people trust from certain brands when they recognize them, when they identify them, and they feel they're going to get the same level of experience, aka branding. The other statistic is that up to 23% of revenue in a business can be consistently achieved by replicating and delivering that branding experience across all channels. Like I said, the problem with small businesses becoming big businesses is the lack of consistency and the IP transfer from the owner to the structure, to the hierarchy under the owner. These statistics tell us why and how building that trust, delivering that experience day in and day out consistently is so important. And again, reinforcing the importance of a brand manual.
Yeah, exactly. The most common examples I come across with brand manuals is not just team members, but a lot of trends with small business owners these days is they hire VAs to do their sort of marketing or collateral and things like that. And if you don't have this guideline in place, when you give it to the VA, most of them don't have any marketing or branding experience. They'll jump onto Canva, and today they see a nice pink flowered, flowery sort of branded thing, and it looks pretty, and they'll just go, let's just start using pink flowers and brand, colors like pink and yellow and things like that. And if your brand is blue and green, then those flowers straight away have no recognition to you, which means when you put those onto your social media, what people are going to see is nice pictures, nice flowers, but they're not going to know it's you. And it's just that's one great example I come across all the time is the VAs just choose nice graphics from Canva, but don't utilize any of the fonts, colors, and icons or anything of those natures, which we've talked about in the last few series episodes about. They haven't put any of that into what we talk about. But I think if we don't keep the script, my friend, I think we'll go off script and start talking about things that are in the next few slides. So do you want to talk about what is a brand?
Yes. So to summarize things, a brand guideline manual, often referred to as brand style guide, is like a rule book for your brand's identity. This document outlines how your brand should look, sound, and feel in every situation. And we can summarize each one of the following points that we have up on our slides, but we've covered them previously. So we're just going to lightly touch on each one of them so that we leave some time to exemplify what the brand manual looks like, what it should and could be for your business. So first up, the visual identity is the most immediate benefit of using a brand manual. As Chris mentioned, the problems start arising when we hire a VA, and that VA then is tasked with creating social media content, posting it on social, and early on, the problems make themselves visible when the visual identity does not correspond to what has been used before, when the tone and voice is not that of the owner who built the trust with the audience up to that point, being himself the one who's posting. Then if we move on to the next slide, we have also other applications such as using the logo, correct size, placement in layouts, colors, all of these things that create this experience, this brand experience, including the imagery, the photography, the type of photography that is used, how that character of the photography relates to the audience. The moment the IP needs to be transferred from the owner to the VA or the onboarded staff member, that's when the brand experiences its first pain points. And just to give you an idea of what a brand style guide could look like, it can be as simple as a simple logo manual, which we have right there on the screen on the left side, which basically tells us how that logo looks against the white background, how that logo looks against the reversed color background, what the elements in that logo do, what the colors do, what that logo looks like in black and white. And all of these applications, once they're defined, there is the documentation of the variances to the rule. The rule being everything going well, and if it's the owner posting content, creating content, he knows what to do, but the problem arises when he needs to transfer that over to somebody else. And this is what the style guide, the manual, instructs the person taking on that task. The typefaces used, or the fonts, the colors with their exact references. And this is important, again, at the most immediate level, because sometimes when you say blue, the person that is being tasked with creating content by the VA team doesn't know if it's a dark blue, if it's a light blue, exactly the references that go into those colors, and then creates content with the best of intentions, but it is completely off-brand. Chris, what am I missing so far?
I just wanted to touch on the 4 things you talked about there. So with visual identity, as I touched on earlier, that we sort of said, you can give it to somebody to go off and create something, but if they don't have the correct logos, the fonts and colors, then they can clearly, like I said earlier, create flowers and things. Tone of voice, I didn't really talk about that with my example, but if you don't give examples of tone and voice to your VA, then they're going to, again, go off and just create nice, fluffy content that they found on the internet or through ChatGPT, and not really take on board the fact that you've maybe had a personality that you've used in the past, or a tone of voice that would actually be useful to be used carrying forward. So giving that to somebody to actually use is great. The logo usage, again, I constantly find when I'm working with VAs or that kind of thing, they'll just whack the logo, they'll use it incorrectly, wrong colors, they won't position it in the left or the right-hand corner where it should be to make be the call to action or to make reminding of that. They'll use it in a lot of people use Canva, and they'll see it in Canva, and Canva's got this ability to shrink and increase the size of the graphics you're working with. So they'll see it at a certain size and go, oh, the logo's very visible. Then they'll upload it to social media and they realize they've just put it down the corner and it's not that visible. It's actually not even useful to be on the graphics that they've sent out. And then finally, imagery, with what you've just touched on there. The thing about imagery is if you don't have a style guide for what imagery to use and they just go off and start using random photos, what you will find is, and this is very common with people who just use a lot of clip art or free imagery, is it will look like it's come from America or the UK, and it won't look, in our case, Australian, or certain nationalities are in those photos that aren't very commonly seen in your local demographic. So that means that there's obviously that disconnect. It doesn't feel real. So these are just some things that if you have them documented, they're going to resonate with the audience, because when we've talked about in our previous episodes, it's always about you don't have a brand without a niche, and that niche is a particular audience that has certain likes and dislikes, and your brand manual needs to talk to that audience. And I'm probably skipping ahead to something we're touching on in a future thing.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
So let's talk about another example. You've got Denise McCadsey as a client of ours that we've worked with, and you can see there that's an extensive style guide we worked through with her.
Yes, so this is the visual breakdown of what the brand identity, look and feel should consistently deliver on. So you have lots of patterns there. You have the logos in positive, you have the logos in reverse colors, you have website applications, you have merchandising items and how those colors basically interact with one another. And after a while, you start seeing that there's a consistency to how the brand is delivered. So this is something of a mid-tier branding development guideline that we work on with our customers on a regular basis. And like I mentioned, this can be easy as a logo manual that we used firstly to encapsulate what the logo and its color and fonts pairing should look like, up to a couple of dozen pages, 40-something pages like we've got there with this this mood board on the right-hand side. Or if you really want to get very specific and have a big enough company that you need an extensive guideline manual, then NASA is your example to follow. NASA to this day has created a guideline of up to 200 pages. That's not a mistake. That is 200 pages of little nuances. And I'm not saying that every small business will have this requirement. However, it can get as technical and as extensive as you need it to be, all the way from the logo to the visual identity to the tone of voice, all of those things, and up to dozens of pages. But it really is depending on the specific case of your particular brand. Most small businesses don't have that need. But just to give you the illustration of what a very complete manual could look like.
Yeah. To be honest, I have a client that I've worked with before in the financial industry, and they had a lot of promotional activities, and they had franchises and things like that. And I was working on that, and they did have would have been an 80 to 120 page document that we created. But that's also because there was so many different elements to their business. So every time they set up a new franchise, or that franchise wanted to order mugs, T-shirts, signage, whatever the case be, we had to identify all those examples. And that's why that became such a large document. But not everybody requires a 100-page document. As we've touched on in a previous episode, there are really 8 key elements that you need to make sure you have documented, so that those 8 elements are used in a way that we're going to talk about in how the brand benefits in this next section. So we'll skip ahead to that one and talk about that. So how does the brand manual benefit your brand? I'll kick off with the first one. I'll let you do the others. So with consistency, a brand manual ensures your brand looks and feels the same across all platforms, from a website to your social media to your print material. This consistency helps you build brand recognition and trust. And I think that's something that people don't, as small business owners, we forget that we are a small business and we're not Nike or McDonald's. So we haven't had the budget to put all that money into mediums such as not just TV and radio and things like that, but you see McDonald's and Coca-Cola and all these things pop up on signage at events, at sides of roads. Like, you can't get away from some of these brands, but they didn't get that recognition because they just, happened to pop up one day. They've been spending millions, if not billions, on marketing globally and internationally, on getting you to remember their colors, their brand, and feel a certain way about them. As a small business owner, and when we say small business, it doesn't mean just this local cafe. It could be a medium tier business that has 10, 15 staff members, that kind of level as well, or bigger. You don't have to be a massive brand, but the fact is, if you don't use these elements consistently, you won't be remembered. And a good example of this is if you're a specialist in accounting, law, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, whatever it is, you're in some kind of industry where you're one of thousands. That's where branding becomes really important, because if you don't identify yourself with some kind of element or the 8 elements we've talked about, what will happen is that you just become a marketer of the industry, not a marketer of yourself. Does that make sense?
That is perfectly said, Chris. That is perfectly said. That's exactly what it comes down to. When you're just shouting out to the winds the benefits of such and such, that such and such being the service or the product, you're not actually branding. You're saying the industry needs to be elevated. And that's not exactly the purpose of why you brand. And this entire process is understanding that, like Chris said, you're a small business. You have the flexibility and you have the ability to create trust, but you don't have millions to do it. So that's why branding consistently, and especially using a brand guideline manual, can be such a huge difference maker. Because I usually encapsulate the advantages that we have here in a couple of slides in 2 main things. It's basically leverage, because you're able to save your time. Once you have that brand guideline in place, you don't need to handhold somebody through onboarding. That could be your VA, that could be your social media team, that could be your marketing person. You just don't need to spend as much time, or even less than a third of the time, when you have this investment piece put in place, because they will have to read through that, understand it, and then start applying it. And yes, it could mean that a little bit of an adaptation period is required, but that adaptation period is going to be a lot shorter than if you had to correct every single time and then just interrupt your own workflow, drop what you're doing, go back to the person who's taking care, for example, of your social media assets and whatnot. So leverage is one, and consistency is the other. Consistency, like statistically and practically, translates into trust. if as a small business you cannot build trust, you're streaming up the river with a bad paddle. It's just going to be that much harder. So for me, really leverage and consistency is what it comes down to. And then we have a number of other reasons why, and we can cover them right now. We have professionalism, again, talks about the importance of consistency. We have efficiency. You make much more happen throughout your day with that clear set of guidelines. Your team can work more efficiently. You don't waste time deciding on fonts or colors for each project. You just hand it over to somebody and they follow the guidelines. This becomes a cost-effective practice in your business for obvious reasons, because you don't need to waste so much time. And obviously, it creates brand recognition. A consistent brand is more likely to be remembered. And at the end of the day, this is what it really comes down to: competitive edge. Because like we mentioned, if everybody in the space is creating noise by repeating the same messages and just throwing it up without a point of differentiation, they're basically saying the industry. They're not saying why me, why us, why our brand. Then we go into other factors such as scaling and growing. Once you have the ability to competently delegate tasks related to marketing, you're left to business building, you're left to networking, you're left to activities that are going to be much more ROI positive for your business as a business owner. Obviously, clarity. Once you clarify your brand's identity and values, this guides the decision making and ensures that your business activities align with your brand. Again, leading to customer trust and basically longevity. That's as simple as I can put it. Leverage and consistency, and all the other reasons are the cream on top. Did I leave anything out, Chris?
No, but you're skimming through this. So look, in essence, a brand guideline manual is an investment in your brand's success. It not only helps you create strong and memorable brand, but also streamlines your business operations and makes your marketing efforts more effective. So for small business with limited resources, this can be a game changer. So, like, I guess the one thing we're trying to get across to everyone in this session today is that you don't have to spend and even when I say spending, you're actually investing. It's not something that is a cost to you in the long run, because it's going to save you money. It's going to make you money by having this document in place. And we've given you a whole bunch of reasons today why that would be the case. But ultimately, the biggest thing is, if you've got more people out there trusting you and liking you, then there's more chance you're going to get more business, because of the factor that they just feel comfortable working with you. They feel like they've known you for a bunch of years, and you can do that really well and really effectively with. And that's what I'm talking about, fast tracking. So if someone has to make a decision, they're going to choose you if you've shown up consistently. And we're not just talking about visual stuff here. And that's probably the big misconception here, is even though the document is a visual guideline, it's not actually talking about just the visual elements of what your brand is about. It also documents, as I said, tone and voice. It talks about the imagery that is being seen in an audio way that allows people to be hearing what you're saying and not just seeing what you're saying. So it's sort of, it's a bigger picture type thing. And if it's used well, you'll find that even your staff members will buy into it. And not just staff members, but suppliers. It's just at all the touch points. And that's why I guess when I'm working with clients on what we talk about with branding, it is so closely related to their business processes and what they do on a day-to-day basis, so that all those touch points that they have can be documented in some shape or form on this document. So, but I'll leave it with you to talk about some other things there, Sim.
Oh, that's perfect. You said it, and I think that's important to understand. It's very close to business practices and the models that the business uses, because once you understand that, you don't see it as an extra, you don't see it as a spend. In Portugal, we have a saying that the cheap eventually becomes much more expensive. And while we're thinking about saving a few dollars and getting just a logo very quickly to get started, do a couple of social media posts and all of this, we're also doing something. We are creating and amassing a body of work that may not be the best representation of that brand. And once we get to a point where it just became so big that it needs to be addressed, the problem has magnified to a level where you're going to have to actually strip it down back to the basics, revisit those basics, reestablish the foundations, and rebuild back up the work that has been already done. Versus the situation we're recommending is that you invest in properly understanding your brand, setting a document that records and documents this insight journey, and then keeps becoming a living library of what it turns into. Because at every step of the way, you will have acquired some more insights and some more knowledge, which is where I want to leave it at, because it can be a true game changer in the long run, medium to long run, for small businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Which will lead to next week's topic that we're going to be talking about, because once you've got this document in place, and we've talked about today about how that document touches all the ongoing communications and relationships and how you run your business. So next week we are going to talk about a thing that we call brand guardianship, which may sound like a fancy word or a couple of words to a bunch of people, but it is managing a brand alone is hard work. So that's where our brand guardians, as in Sim and I on the screen here, we work with you to establish and maintain and amplify your brand. So it involves an ongoing and strategic management of your brand's identity and values and reputation. So if you want to know more about what that means, please join us next week as we talk about how the brand guardianship can make you more money and build your business in a way, and also give you back your business and your time, which is probably important to a lot of business owners out there. So please look forward to joining you next week. And I thank you for joining us this week. And as always, if you're out there and you have you want to tell us where you're at or you've got questions, please let us know. There's obviously some people online. Thank you for those people that have actually mentioned and said hello to us out there.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah,
yes.
So look forward to chatting to everybody and seeing you next week. Same time, same bat channel, as we always work on amplifying your brand. Thanks again, everyone.